Hey, how's it guys? In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to get started with CloudFormation in AWS. So CloudFormation, in my opinion, is probably one of the most important skills to know if you work with AWS, especially if you work as a cloud engineer or system admin. So first of all, what is AWS CloudFormation and what does it do? Now, in summary, CloudFormation is an AWS service that automates the setup, management, and scaling of AWS resources using templates. Imagine you need to create multiple S3 buckets and several EC2 instances. Now, instead of creating each resources manually, we can create a single reusable template to create and modify the resource in a single run. Now, when it comes to using CloudFormation for deployment, you'll be working with templates and stacks. Now, templates and stacks are very important concept when you are working with CloudFormation. You can think templates as blueprints for creating AWS resources and can create a template either in a JSON or YAML format that defines the AWS resource. And with a single template, we can reuse the template to create multiple stacks in different environments, or you can share the template with other users to create the resources. Now, with the CloudFormation templates, we can include parameters, mapping, conditions, and other elements to allow customization at the time of stack creation. And the template is basically a YAML or JSON file, so you can store the file locally. Now, stack, on the other hand, is a set of AWS resources that are created and managed together based on a CloudFormation template. When you run a template, CloudFormation automatically creates, updates, or deletes all the resources in the stack as a unified group, ensuring that your infrastructure is set up consistently and is defined in the template. Now let's look at two examples on what a template is like. On the top, we have this JSON template that we can use to create an instance of the EC2 resource. On the bottom, we have the YAML template to do the same thing. Now, currently, majority of the companies, they use YAML as the template. And in today's exercise, we'll be creating a YAML template to create two S3 instances that you can see how to configure your own resources in the future. Now, before diving into the exercise, I just want to do a quick comparison between using CloudFormation versus using SDK when it comes to creating and modify resources in AWS. On the abstraction level, using CloudFormation is more of high-level, abstract infrastructure setup, whereas if we use SDK, then we have a more granular control in terms of each step. Now, when it comes to ease of use, CloudFormation is a lot easier to deploy multiple services or to set up your AWS infrastructure. First, if you are using SDK, then you will need to use code to manually set everything up. Now, when it comes to learning curve, if you've never worked with JSON or YAML file before, then it can be a little bit intimidating. But trust me, it's pretty easy once you get comfortable working with YAML or JSON files. Now, SDK, on the other hand, if you're a developer who has been working with AWS SDK, in that case, it may be a little bit easier for you to use SDK to set up resources. Now, the other important feature is that using CloudFormation, we can scale pretty easily. First, using SDK. Now, those are just some of the key concept or key comparison that I want to share. Now, let's dive into an exercise. Now, navigate into your AWS console and want to navigate to CloudFormation. So CloudFormation is region specific, so make sure that you choose the correct region. Now, for demonstration purpose, I'm going to create two buckets in my S3. All right, so let me go ahead and open my S3 bucket. And I open my YAML file. Now, if we look at the YAML file here, description is used to describe your setup. And the template version right now is 2010 September 9th. and it's been this version for a long time. Here, I might have the link. Give me a second. Oh, by the way, I'll link all the resources in the description below, just in case if you need to reference anything after this tutorial. Now, if we go into the user guide, and here we can locate the latest template version. And to be honest, I don't think the version is going to change anytime soon. Yeah, we've been using the same template version for the past 13 years. And from the documentation, we have different template snippets. So in case if you want to quickly set up multiple different resources, so based on the infrastructure that you want to set up, we have a variety of templates that we can use. Now, the other really important documentation reference is the resource and property type reference. Now, going back to the template file, in my YAML file, I'm going to define the resources by typing resources from the top. Then I'm going to give my resource a name. So this is going to be the name of the resource for the first bucket. Now, just keep in mind that this is not the bucket name. To define the bucket name, we need to define the properties followed by the property name. In this case, will be bucket name. Now, if I go into the reference documentation page, if I go into S3, I'm going to go into S3 bucket. So this will be the name of the resource that you want to reference. In this case, I'm defining the type as my resource name. Now, to specify the resource property, in this case will be S3 bucket. So these are all the available properties that you can use. And here's the bucket name property to define the bucket name. For demonstration purpose, I'm going to name my bucket my first unique bucket name. And to create the other bucket, I'm going to define the resource name, resource type, the property, and the bucket name, and save the file. Now going back to CloudFormation console, here we're going to click on Create Stack. Here we have three options. We can use our own template, or we can use Amazon's provided template, or we can use the designer to create a template. And to be honest, I haven't really found a really good use of the designer just because there are actually quite many issues when you are using the designer. So here I'm going to choose templates ready because I want to use my own template. Now to load the template file, we can either load the template file from a S3 bucket, or we can manually load the template file, or we can reference the template file on a GitHub repository. Now here I'm going to manually upload my file. So I'm going to choose upload a template file. Then I'm going to select the file. The CloudFormation service is going to create a backup in an S3 bucket. So it's going to automatically save the file to this bucket right here. Now click on next. And here we need to give our stack a name. So I'll name this as demo S3 bucket setup. And click on next. For now, I'm going to leave everything as default. Then I'm going to click on next. Now on the review page, just verify that all the information is correct. Then I can click on submit to create the stack. Now when you submit the stack, so CloudFormation is going to take the YAML file and look at the resources and perform the setup process. Now if I refresh the stack, now it's still creating the buckets. Okay, so let's look at the events. So we start from initializing the resource creation all the way to create complete. And when you see create complete, this just means that the resources are created. Now, if I go into my S3 bucket, and if I refresh the list, now here's the bucket where my template backup is located. And here's my first unique bucket name bucket and my second unique bucket name bucket. Now, let's say I want to modify the properties. So for example, I want to change my bucket name. So I want to change that to my first bucket name. And I want to change the second bucket to my second bucket name and save the file. Now here I can simply go back and click on update. And I'll upload my updated template file. So I'll choose use current template and next. And let's see, actually let me go back. Okay, so here we need to choose replace current template and upload a template file. Now I'm going to upload my updated version template. And next. Now here review all the information that is correct. Now we can see the change in the change set preview section. So based on the updated template that I provided while doing a modify action, then I'm going to click on submit. All right, so here I'm getting an error. Let me take a look. So usually when you see the error code already exists, that just means that someone else is already using the same bucket name. Remember that bucket name needs to be globally unique. So I'm going to append my initial here. And I'll do it again. Right, so hopefully this time the update will go through. So it looks like the update is complete, and this time we did not run into any issue. Right, so going back to my S3 buckets, I'm going to refresh the list. And here are the updated bucket name. My first bucket name JJ, my second bucket name JJ. So as you can see that by using CloudFormation templates, we can quickly and easily manage different resources in a very short amount of time. Now, if we want to delete the resources, it's really easy. We'll go back and we'll simply click on delete because right now the stack is associated to the buckets in the template. So by clicking on delete, this will simply delete all the resources that are tied to this stack. And it looks like the deletion is complete. So if I go back to my S3 bucket, refresh the list, and the buckets that I created using CloudFormation is now deleted. So this is going to be everything I'm going to share in this tutorial, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this video a like and click on the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.